Okay, I think we're done. My rod snapped.
You're probably wondering what's going on here. Well, let me back up a little bit. So last week, I was flying my drone in my backyard. Well, I was trying to. And after finding a charged battery, resetting my DJI password for the 40th time this year, finding satellites, calibrating the gimbal, the wind picked up in a ferocious manner. And if you know anything about drones, then you know that wind is the enemy. That and FAA regulations. Well, what if I could make a drone that loved wind and didn't give a f about drone laws? And from this sequence of events, I had a brilliant idea to attach a camera to a kite. And before you ask, yes, I'm still sitting on the same air conditioner I threw off my deck a few weeks ago. It landed here, and I've been using it as a drone chair ever since. My wife wants me to get rid of it, but I've got bigger fish to fry. So this is the story of how I built a drone kite to avoid FAA laws. So there's a few things I purchased to make this kite. I went with the lightest plastic I could find because weight is gonna be the enemy here. Duct tape, grommets, markers, cutting tools, paracord, and dowel rods. I'm gonna make a simple Delta kite. It should be very easy to build. First, I laid out my material. Then I trimmed the dowels to size. Afterwards, I trimmed the material. Immediately following that, I learned that I made it too short. Which is unfortunate because I had just used half of my roll of plastic. So the project was off to an excellent start. I only had enough material for one more try. So I had to be very careful. After cutting the material again, I started laying everything out. Taping the project was infinitely harder than I anticipated. The grommets wouldn't seat properly. I put the keel on backwards. Ah! My action camera chest mount broke. Several rejected grommets littered the ground around me like little landmines, and my knees were the Vietnamese army in the 1960s. Pulling these little brass grommets out of my skin was not even the worst part of the whole thing. If you ever have a stupid idea of making a kite, just don't. Spend the money, buy a Chinese kite that a little kid made, and move on with your life. After getting it mostly together, I decided to run around my driveway like an unemployed oaf at 11:54 a.m. on a Wednesday. Then I nailed the perfect grommet and added my paracord.
And this is how you make a bowling knot.
I just needed a handle to hold this monstrosity. Okay, let's do a trial flight. Unfortunately, the kite crashed off camera, and it was broken. So I sat down with the kite to see how it was feeling.
Interesting. And when the wind let you down, how did that make you feel? Interesting. It sounds like you're having trouble staying grounded. Now tell me, do you ever feel pressure to reach new heights? Okay. And would you mind if I took a quick photo for my website? Maybe write up a little testimonial about how I helped you? Say breeze. You know what they say, a good website really puts winds in your sails.
Unlike my childhood trauma, duct tape can actually fix this, so I reinforced the entire thing with an irresponsible amount of it. The funny thing is, the more duct tape I add, the more weight I add, and the less likely this whole thing is to work. And after doom scrolling in my drone chair for a while, waiting for the wind, it suddenly happened. Before I knew it, I was out in my yard, right in the area where my dog Liam poops. But I didn't care. My kite was nearly 20 feet in the air. I whipped out my phone to capture the tail end of this legendary flight. I felt like the Wright brothers, only more accomplished. Now, I just need to attach the action camera, which weighs almost as much as the entire kite. So there's a very real chance that this never even works. But I discovered that there's an entire culture around kite photography that existed back before drones were recreationally legal. They used film cameras and early digital cameras to take photos from way up high. To stabilize the camera, they used something called a picavette. I quickly designed this picavette in Fusion 360 and threw some eye hooks in there that I had laying around. Now was the time to see if this actually worked though. Despite having no wind, I ran around my yard like a monkey. My questionable kite actually carried the camera. I made a drone. Well, a drone kite. And now I just waited patiently for the FAA to kick my door in.
FBI, open up!
Now, at this point, I wanted a real flight. I checked the weather and we're supposed to get wind gusts of 27 miles per hour this weekend on Saturday. Now, the question is, will this survive 27 mile per hour wind? Or am I about to donate a camera to the sky? In preparation for my flight, I added some ID numbers. I always see boats and planes with these numbers, so I figured it made sense. Now, do I go trendy or do I appease the largest group of people who follow me? Let me know in the comments if I did the right thing. Okay, it's Saturday, it's windy, and I'm ready. Or at least I thought I was. I did several passes with a marginally successful flight, showing my camera about 30 feet in the air. So it will work. The kite was extremely challenging to launch, and after several passes, something unfortunate happened. And now you're up to speed. At this point, I went home tired and disappointed. A broken dowel rod isn't expensive, but I feel like I wasted a good windy day. And I've been waiting some time for a good windy day. At this point, I was questioning everything I knew about kites and kite aerial photography, which to be fair, wasn't much. Over the next few days, I replaced the line with a proper kite string, reinforced the frame, and crashed this thing more times than I can count. I also learned that you're not supposed to launch the kite with the camera rig attached. Apparently, you're supposed to get the kite stable first, then clip the camera onto the line afterwards. So I designed a quick release system, bought some tiny carabiners, and finally started doing things the right way. It didn't matter though. The kite still refused to fly consistently. I kept breaking spars, making repairs, and questioning whether this video was ever gonna happen. Eventually, I hit rock bottom, and I started shopping for another kite. And that's when I found a guy on Facebook Marketplace selling what appeared to be a much more serious kite. So I agreed to meet him, and when I arrived, it was already in the air. He brought it down, put it back up. No running, no sweating, no drama, just an effortless flight. So we made the deal, and then he helped me send my camera into the sky. We clipped the camera rig onto the line, and the kite immediately carried it hundreds of feet overhead. And then something terrifying happened. The kite suddenly dive-bombed towards the ground, and at the last second, it recovered, sending my little action camera swinging through the air like a wrecking ball. The footage I got, mostly terrible, but it still counts. Would it have been easier to send my drone up and get the same shots? Absolutely. But I don't know what the future of drones looks like. Every year, there seems to be more rules, more restrictions, and more questions about where people can and can't fly. And honestly, that's part of why I made this video. Not because I think kites are replacing drones, they're definitely not, but I do think it's important that people keep flying things, whether it's a drone, an RC plane, a model rocket, or a giant flying tarp that you built in your garage. The more people who enjoy these hobbies and fly responsibly, the harder it is to ignore. And for me, I set out to build a drone that wasn't technically a drone, and instead, I accidentally became a kite guy. So if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. There's no shortage of bad ideas around here. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out my membership. You'll get behind the scenes content and project updates. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.